Okay, so today's lecture is regarding national languages and language planning. Okay, La Rosa is a highly educated Paraguayan who lives in a capital city of that country. This country is near Brazil, and he has spent many years fighting to develop and encourage pride in their regional language, which is Guarani, and that is the indigenous language. However, Spanish is considered, Spanish was always considered as the language of their culture, but then later this all changed, and it was, this confusion, or you can say this fight for the language was there. They wanted their, you know, it, their Guarani language to be considered as a national language. Uh, if you see this, it is a Paraguay is the only Latin American nation with a distinctive national language, and however there are since they coexisted with since past 3 years with the with the speakers of Spanish. So it's like obviously the influence of such language is there, and therefore Spanish is was considered as a official language in high variety and a high variety. So it alongside nowadays alongside Spanish, Guaray is also the language of uh, that country, official language, and national language of that country is considered that official language of that country. The the reason is that the reason was that they felt solidarity, they felt love for that language, and just like indigenous languages is you have affinity towards that language, and that is why they felt solidarity towards low variety, but still it was considered an important language for that, alongside Spanish, which was a high variety and was used for official purposes as well. Okay, so what is a national language? A national language is the language of political, cultural, and social unit. It is generally developed and used as a symbol of national unity. So, the very word national language suggests that it is the language associated within any nation, right? So, if someone says that I can speak Hindi, or if someone is speaking in Hindi, we instantly try to think that they are Hindu. Though there are many non-linguistic factors which determine that whether the person is Hindu or not, or Indian or not. The uh, We associate different things with even religion with the language. We associate these things. So for instance, in a first glance we associate. So for instance, if there's someone who speaks very good Pashto, and the first instance of that person is that this person is Pathan, though that person might not be Pathan. uh, the reason is that we associate identity with the language. So any national language, we know that it is the identity of that language, and it unites the people together. So a national language is the language of a political, cultural, and social unit, and that it is a language which identifies the people. So we know that it's the identity of the language and it is the identity of a person. So we associate language with the identity of the person as well, or identity of the nation as well. If you look at the contrast, and in contrast we have official language. So official language is a language which may be used for the government businesses and business purpose, or for the official purposes. However, it is not necessary that you always have these two one language can be official as well as national language, and a single language can be officially regarded as official language as well as the national language, or it may naturally, with the passage of time, may become the official language or the national language. For instance, if there is a monolingual country, so in that monolingual country, it is very obvious that the language which is spoken, it would be the national language by the community. It will also be a lingua franca. No, it will not be. Sorry, it will not be a lingua franca because it is a monolingual country. If it is a multilingual country and the majority is speaking one language, I'll give you the example that, for instance, if in one country there are two languages spoken. Let us take the example of Swahili and English. So, if in a country there is a minority speaking Swahili, and then there are majority speaking English or German, then that language is going to be considered um, uh, as official language, as a national language. That would depend on many different factors. So we cannot, the examples that I tried to give, the reason was that any one factor is not necessary to determine that whether a language is going to be official language, or whether a language is going to be a national language. There are many factors determining this. So if there are majority speakers, then it will also affect your attitude towards the language. So for instance, if you are very close to your language, in just was the same case with the Aguani or language. So in that case, you can say that they had affinity and they fought for that language. They tried to make that language official language, and they wanted to give it a status. So it there are certain factors, your attitude, the political affinity, the quality of the language itself, um, or the land, or the power of the speakers of that language. These all things determine. So power of the speakers of the language. For instance, English is official language in many places, reason being that the speakers of that language are very powerful. So economically powerful. So we see that there are many factors involving. Any one factor cannot be the reason, and it would vary from country to country, for a language to be determined as a national language, or for a language to be determined as official language. Can be one singular language which is official and national language, can be two or three different languages which are given the status of official and national language. And a national language can uh, be divided into sub languages as well. For instance, in India, we have official languages, and then we have within every province or region, they have given importance and some kind of status to their own languages as well. So it it may vary from situation to situation and from country to country. Uh, so official language is any language which may be used for the government businesses, and its function is not of being symbolic or identity, but it has some utilitarian purposes, means materialistic purposes. It only serves materialistic purposes. For instance, english is used for material purposes, to get a job, because it's important to know that language. You need to, it's because of official purposes only that english is important. We don't have any affinity towards the language, or we do not consider it as the language of solidarity or identity. It's not the land. Uh, it does not work as the language used for the identity. So, I've already discussed, that it is possible that one language may um, happens to be the official language, um, as well as the national language of the country. In such cases, it will serve both functions, the function of materialistic or utilitarian purpose, as well as the function of symbolic or identity of the nation. Though these two terms, that is official and national, are very political, they have political associations or political ends associated with that. The reason being um, that it is to satisfy the political and social goals of any nation, uh, to uh, uh, to decide whether a language is going to be official or national. So, for instance, if someone makes or for instance, if you consider the example of the times when Pakistan before independence, that is in subcontinent, when there was this issue of controversy of Hindi Urdu controversy, if you remember. So the from Pakistan study. So the reason was not because any one of the language was more important, or but the only reason was because they wanted to satisfy the political and the social needs of one group. That was the reason. So if they make Hindi official language, then there is a problem, because the social and political goals of one group is not satisfied. If they make Urdu official or national language, then the social and political goals of the other group is not satisfied. This is one thing that determines, and that is why we say that it is it meets the political end. So that is why it depends on many other factors. And it depends on many other factors to determine a language to be a political, or to be a official or a national language. Sometimes the choice of a national language is problematic. For instance, in multilingual in India, so the attempt to give Hindi sole status as a national language have not succeeded. 14 regional Indian languages are recognized as official languages alongside English and Hindi for the country as a whole. So in such cases, it varies. For instance, in India, there are different multilingual, there are different languages, and speakers of different languages want their language to be identified as given the status of official language or national language. And that is the reason that India has taken this step, and they have made 14 regional languages official languages alongside English and Hindi official languages for the whole country. So in that case, then um, uh, the situation completely varies. So we have of like 14 regional languages which are official languages, and then English and Hindi both are official languages for the country. Okay. Uh, As we know that English is official language of many countries throughout the world, and including Pakistan. Um, but in countries where it's very obvious, like in some countries, it is not given, English is not given any um, legal status, any legal status. So it is very obvious to understand that it is going to be official language as well as national language. For instance, in England, English is like they don't even feel the need to say that it's official language or it's a national language, because they know that English, it's very obvious that it has to be official and national language. But then in Canada, because there are these two languages which are over there, and then it is like two languages are considered as official languages. So it may vary from country to country depending on the situation. So in England, you know that it's a land, only English is spoken over there, and that is why they have given this status of uh, English. Now, it official of like it is considered obvious that it is official language and national language. Then in it depends on the activists as well, the campaigns that you run to make your own language or the language of minority as a official language or as a national language. So when it comes to fighting for your language, it is it depends, like for instance in Maori, for instance, the Maori activists, they they made through their efforts, they made that language official. So this may happen that a certain this is one of the factors which would determine a minority's language or would give status to a minority's language as official language. And that would be when there are some activists who are working for that language, and they are making and trying to make efforts to make a language official, or to make as their own language uh, as national language, to be recognized by the government. Okay, you, because we know that we have heard this slogan a lot, and that is one nation, one language. And we have heard this a lot, that one nation, one language means that if you speak one language, then you are one nation. So, for instance, if um, someone cannot speak, I just give you example of uh, Hinko speakers or Pashto speakers. If someone who is saying that I am Pathan, but I cannot speak Pashto, would you believe that person? No, you won't believe that person. Or there will be a certain doubt in your heart that this person is saying that he's or she's a Pathan, but he's not, because he cannot speak Pashto. So one language, one nation. Same is the case with the nations as well. If you cannot speak the language of a nation, then you're not considered as the part of that nation. So it's very important that a single language determines the unity of a nation, right? And a- it this language, national language, um, has um, it depends on, sometimes it is made through efforts, and sometimes it is through it just emerged naturally. For instance, in England, uh, English in England, French in France, Japanese in Japan, Spanish in Spain. These are very obvious examples that a national language has emerged naturally and unconsciously to be a national language, because all of the speakers are already speaking the same language, which I've already discussed. Okay. Or there can be struggles, which I've already explained, that there can be struggle to establish a distinct national identity, and to secure independence from colonial rule. Uh, I've already discussed Hindi Urdu controversy with you all. So this was one of the example for this, uh, to make a language national language, and there are some efforts for that. And why do you have those efforts? Okay. um, in some other multilingual countries, such as China or Indonesia, where there are large populations speaking hundreds of different vernacular languages. We are not saying that one language. They might have different dialects or different vernacular languages that they are speaking. So in such case, lingua franca is very important. And when in order to have one language which would not just unify the nation, which would not just help it would also help in communication as well. So that for that purpose, official language is very important. Same is the case with Pakistan as well. So in Pakistan, Urdu is considered as our language, and we communicate in that language. It's like we consider everyone to understand that language. So if we don't understand, if we don't have common language, then we use Urdu. So it is important to have such language. Okay. So as I've told you, that sometimes it's the political power of any group, um, and of any group, which would determine which would determine a language to be official or a national language. And if the speakers of if any language is spoken by politically powerful people in one country, then their language would become official or a national language. However, in some countries it may vary. For instance, in Indonesia, the government did not select the language of politically and social elite group, and but they tried to develop and standardize a variety of Malay, which was widely used in Indonesia as a trade language. So it may vary. Um, in different scenarios. For instance, in Indonesia, it's like completely different. Like uh, they have not used the language of, or they have not given the status of official and political status to the language of uh, politically strong or powerful group. But they have um, made a language which was serving utilitarian purpose, that is a trade language, and they standardized it, or that is codified it, and used and made it official and national language. Okay. In order to plan a language, you planning for a national official language, there are certain steps that are followed. So any code or any variety which is suitable for the official use, or you're trying to make that language official, there are certain steps that you need to follow, and those steps are four steps. The first step is selection, then it's codification, then it's elaboration, then it's securing its acceptance. So what is selection? Selection is choosing the variety or code to be developed. So for instance, if in a country they want a language to be to be official or a national language, for that purpose you need to select that language first based on any of the points. Like, you want to go for the language of powerful, you want to go for the language like low variety language uh, of us for of another group's language, which is like minority group language. You what is the language that you're selecting, and why are you selecting it? That would depend on you. Like any country, that would depend on any country, but selection is very important. Selecting that one language is very important. Okay, then we have codification. Codification is, I've already discussed it in previous lectures as well. uh, Codification is the process in which you standardize a language. It goes through certain steps, that is, you perfect its vocabulary, you have proper dictionary in that, you start uh, to structure its or properly structure its grammar, or write it down properly, or perfect the grammatical structures or grammar of that language. So um, it goes through linguistic uh, processing, which is known as corpus planning. Okay, so then the next step is, as I've already discussed, codification. That is, the codification involves developing a standard spelling system and describing the grammar of the variety selected as the new standard, and writing a dictionary to record its vocabulary. All these points are there in the process of codification, right? Um, Elaboration. Now, for instance, if a language is already used for extending its functions to more domains in which it is not used before, and that involves developing necessary linguistic resources for handling new concepts and context. So that would also include like starting a TV channel in that, and all these steps. And in elaboration, for instance, if the language that you have selected is the language sorry if you have selected is the language which was the language of majority, right, then extending its function would be, because the language is already spoken, um, is the indigenous language, or is the uh, is the is the native language of majority of the speakers, then it's still a native language. So it needs to it would be spoken at homes normally, and it would not be spoken in official domains. So you have to take it and extend it to the official domains as well, maybe to the markets as well, uh, for maybe to the schools as well. So you have to extend its function for the use in new domains, right? And if a language that you have selected is the language of the trade language, which is not used at home domains, or which is not used in other education, so you have to bring that, bring it or introduce it or extend it in education as well as in informal domains as well, so that the language, the use of the language is extended in different domains. Then um, okay, so the fourth step is securing its acceptance. It is very important that even if you select the language, you codify the language, you elaborate, you go to the elaboration as well. But if it is not accepted by the people, then you cannot make it official or a natural language. So it's very important that you do something in this regard to make a language, or a government do, if like a government does something in regards to the acceptance of a language. And in that case, you have to work on people's attitude towards the variety. That is, they need to uh, uh, develop something that is that would make people feel proud in using that language, or they can enhance prestige level associated with that language, and encourage people to develop pride in that language, or loyalty towards that language. This process is known as status planning, or prestige planning. In that process, it can be done through TV channels, or through providing opportunities to the people. So if you're providing opportunity to the people, people will obviously feel good about that language and would try to learn that language. So different steps can be taken um, uh, towards status planning or prestige planning. Moreover, we cannot say that selection, codification, elaboration, and acceptance is, these steps come one after another. They sometimes overlap as well. So for instance, if you're selecting a language, you already have in mind that will that language be accepted by the people or not. So you already have some kind of acceptance of the people in your mind when you are selecting a language. A codification cannot be done unless you have you know there is some kind of elaboration already done. So or the language is already elaborated in many domains, and that is why you have selected the language. So these all are um, overlapping in some steps. It's not necessary that will always be in one sequence. Okay. The steps in language planning is towards the form. It is selection and codification are the steps when it comes to the form. However, when it comes to function and the attitudes, it is the acceptance and elaboration. So the step 4 and step 2 comes in function and attitude, and of, these steps come in the form of the language. And selection is a process which is completely involving social and political factor, whereas codification and elaborating the code is something which covers wide functions, which are purely linguistic functions. And because producing a dictionary, or perfecting the grammar, or bringing it to the bringing it to the uh, education, that is bringing it in practice in everyday language, these are something which are the part of the wide range functions that is a huge step. So here we have different examples of different languages. which were codified and then elaborated, and how these languages were, codified and elaborated, and how, not just codified and elaborated, but how were they developed. um, these are all the examples. So how a language is codified and I've already discussed it with you in journal examples, but they have given you specific examples over here. You can read it and try to, you know um, link it with already the explanations that I have given you, at least one of these examples.